DIYers, hey, what's going on? Mike Borders with the Mike Borders channel. Thank you for watching. We are working on my dad's 1987 Gravely riding mower. It is the professional 18G with the Magnum 18 Kohler engine. In today's video, the step-by-step process on how to properly and safely replace your voltage regulator. Pretty important part. Let's get started. All right, DIYers, hey, here we are, and in front of us again, my dad's 1987 Gravely riding mower. And what we'll do first is remove the key from the ignition, followed by raising that front compartment, where we can then gain access to the battery, where we will disconnect not only the black negative cable, but also the red positive. To the opposite side of the tractor, again, removing the key from the ignition, and down below in the comments and description will be a link on where to purchase really cool keychains. And in our case, my dad's model has these little rubber grips that secure the panel or cover. And there's one on each side. From here, we will raise that cover. Camera now positioned looking directly at the battery, and down below in the comments and description will be a link on how to replace a battery. We just replaced this a couple days ago. We will also have a link on where to purchase a replacement battery, and in our case it had to be an exact match because we've got very specific securing plates and mounts on either side of the battery. However, black negative cable first, we are going to grab our 12mm socket. In our case, we've got two hardware nuts, and loosen up and remove these. And you don't actually have to remove them fully, just get them loose, or you can pull the connection off. And do not pull by the cable or wires. Grab the actual connection, go ahead and carefully twist it and turn it, and pull it up and off. Set that aside, come over to the red positive, pull the boot up. I'll shift that back, grab the ratchet and socket, and loosen it up. And I'm going to set the cables in a way where they are not going to hop back up and make contact with the terminals. Taking a step back, and again, configuration wise, the key is removed from the ignition and both negative and positive cables are fully removed from the battery. And let's go to the rear of the tractor where the engine is. Again, Magnum Kohler 18 as shown there. And we are doing a lot of work to this engine and tractor as a whole. And we're going to have several video links down below for your help. And a few include replacing the grass screen as well as replacing the flywheel fan blade that is in rough shape to a point where the grass screen can't even connect to it anymore. And we've got our air filter casing or housing, and right there is our 35-year-old voltage regulator. Very impressive. To a different camera angle, and again, there is our voltage regulator, and securing the voltage regulator to the outer or rear cowling or engine cover / panel are two 7/16 bolts, and on the inside is an electrical connection point. We are going to leave that as is and come up top and begin removing the entire air filter housing or casing. And DIYers, a lot of people make the mistake of trying to remove this voltage regulator with the rear cowling still secured all the way around the engine. And that will actually result in jamming this left 7/16 bolt in between its insert on the regulator and the exhaust manifold. And unfortunately, some people will continue to unscrew this bolt and make a huge gash on the bottom portion of the exhaust manifold and all the way up until they finally break that bolt free from being jammed. In addition to the damage it can do to the exhaust manifold, it can bend the cowling or panel. And DIYers, you don't want that. So leave it as is. We're going to come up top and begin again removing the air filter casing. We've got two wing nuts, and we're going to carefully remove these. Carefully pull up on the cover and remove it. We now have access to the inner air filter and ensure that the seal is properly placed on the housing. I'm going to carefully pull up on this actual filter, and I've got two rubber grommets on the threaded studs. And there they are. As you see right there, they are now loose. And I don't want those going missing. From here, we have a rubber hose that has a beveled lip or design to it that feeds through the actual aluminum casing or bottom portion of the air filter casing and locks in place. I am going to ever so carefully push that hose down in a way where I do not damage the beveled portion of it. At that point, the last thing holding this case in place is a 3/8 bolt inside here. I will loosen and remove that. There it is. And again, from here, just carefully pull this up. This will come out of the little intake there, as shown there. And DORs, as you can see, we now have better access to our entire carburetor, as you see there, and our throttle cable that feeds all the way up, and the choke on the left-hand side, our air intake, and again, our exhaust manifold. And we are still not going to remove or loosen up these two 7/16 bolts on the voltage regulator. We are now going to go all the way around the rear panel and remove all of the 3/8 bolts. However, not all of them on that side. We are going to remove the top one here and maybe 1 or 2 on that side. However, all of them on the left side. And you can get a ratchet on these. However, this is the only one you cannot get a ratchet on. And I've got these really cool ratcheting style wrenches. DORs, down below in the comments and description will be a link on where to purchase a ratchet style wrench set. These come in very handy, as you see. And stay organized, and what I mean by that, don't lose the bolts inside the engine or lose them on the ground or grass. And I'm going to take it one step further. I'm going to organize these in a way where I know I put the exact same bolts back in the exact same holes they came out of when it comes time to put everything back together, followed by the additional bolts. 2 different camera angles so I can show you where these bolts are. And again, we are loosening all of them on the left-hand side. And this entire cowling or rear panel will be able to be shifted out in a way where we can carefully and safely remove the voltage regulator without damaging anything. And one more right down here. Now let's hop to the opposite side and remove additional bolts. To the opposite side, we have a spark plug wire or boot, and we've got our kill switch right here that feeds in, and the additional plug wire that feeds to the opposite side of the engine. And ever so carefully, go ahead and put your 3/8 socket inside there and loosen and remove that bolt. And there are 2 additional ones down below on the left side. We might be able to leave those. From here, don't put any stress on the plug wires or kill switch. In addition, we have an electrical connection point. If you can reach your hand back here, go ahead and carefully disconnect it. Do not pull from the wires, that would not be good. And there it is, as you see right there. One wire feeds into the kill switch and heads upstream. The additional wires go in and inside the engine compartment down below, where they secure to the stator behind the actual flywheel fan blade. However, I can now pull this out where I can carefully remove each of the 7/16 bolts and pull this regulator up and out. And I will start with the left-hand side. It may be tight. Do your absolute best not to damage anything. That one's loose, followed by the right side. And that one's loose. To a different camera angle, I wanted to give you a closer view of the bolts being removed. And you should be able to just loosen them up and remove them by hand. And these bolts are about 1 inch long. Just be careful, as you see. And again, by doing it this way, we are not going to scratch or gouge the bottom portion of the exhaust manifold. Not what you want, trust me. And from here, carefully pull up and remove the voltage regulator. And check out the bottom portion as shown here. And I'm going to put that back in the panel, and in the event that you try to do this with this entire cowling still secured by all of the bolts, and you get each of the screws out or bolts out, you are not going to be able to lift this up and clear this bottom portion from the panel. You will continue to damage stuff. Don't do that. Time to go get the replacement OEM voltage regulator and get it installed. And here's the replacement part inside the bag. Again, OEM. Down below in the comments and description will be a link on where to purchase that. And here it is removed from the packaging. Again, old on the left-hand side, brand new one on the right, and referencing the old as we just saw. And the brand new one being 35 years newer. It is a different design. And it is going to be positioned as shown there with the electrical leads feeding in so the connection point can properly secure to it. And the new regulator came with brand new hardware. Camera now positioned looking back at the loose rear panel, and you can clean the mating surface up, and there are the 2 bolt holes. And again, Here's how it is going to go in, with the electrical leads feeding toward the connection point. And we will connect that here shortly, and I'm going to hand tighten without cross-threading the new hardware and bolts. And these are the same size, 7/16. DIYers, do not cross-thread these into this panel. It is very thin, and if you strip it, that's bad news. And I can feel the tension on the tension or compression washer, and we are going to feed back to our 7/16 ratcheting style wrench and secure it, again without over tightening it. You want it snug, but again, don't over tighten it. In DIYer's first glance, it is an eyesore. It really sticks out compared to the old one that was factory painted, or painted in the factory when it was getting painted 35 years ago in 1987. However, again, that is on there, and we are going to carefully maneuver this panel back in place and line up all the screw holes or bolt holes. And I may bring the electrical connection down carefully, and that came over there. And I'm going to position my hands and carefully push this back in, and I may need to secure the panel in place before I try to stretch that to connect it. I don't want to damage any wiring. And I will begin hand tightening each bolt. And the inner panel, you again have to shift it ever so carefully until the holes match up. And these should go in extremely easily. Don't cross thread them. And this one back here is going to be the tough one, and that's the one you cannot get a ratchet or socket on, but just be careful, do not cross thread it, and maneuver the inner panel accordingly so it catches. To a different camera angle, I want to show you where these bolts are going back in. Again, they should go in easy and secure with the 3/8 socket. I'm going to scroll in, and I'm going to re-secure the electrical connection. Connection point is now re-secured. We'll continue to the left and secure the remaining 3/8 bolts. And last but not least, that one you cannot get a socket on. Taking a step back, and at this point, just double check everything. You've got all of the 3/8 bolts properly secured, the connection point, the 7/16 bolts, and if all looks good, we are going to begin re-securing our entire air filter casing or housing. And make sure that your air intake gasket is properly seated. And this little hose, here's that beveled lip I was talking about. And again, we are going to pinch that or feed it through that hole right there. And that larger hole goes right there. And the hose is properly fed through, and in addition, we've got this rubber chute here that all the air being fed or generated by the flywheel fan blade comes up and enters in the air intake. And from here, again, double check that your gasket is secured, align that 3/8 bolt hole, and re-secure the 3/8 bolt. Just like all the other ones, do not drop it and do not cross thread it, and don't over tighten it. From here, you can carefully push down and verify that your intake hose is properly seated in the rear cowling or panel, followed by the air filter. Over both of the threaded studs, go ahead and add your rubber grommets. And before we secure the cap or cover, ensure again that your seal is properly seated. All looks good. Go ahead and re-secure your cover with the wing nuts. As we double check everything, we are going to do some friendly cleaning. And from here, again, double check everything, and if all looks good, which in our case it does, we are going to continue forward with starting the engine, and we are going to test the battery voltage with a voltmeter to ensure that the voltage output is not sporadic, or in other words, the load on the battery is not exceeding 14. And coming up to the battery, again, we are going to re-secure the battery first, red positive followed by black negative. And it did just that, and at this point, just verify before you close the actual cover that your battery cables are properly positioned inside where they are not going to be pinched or damaged. DLRs, at this point, it is time to start the engine and ensure that the voltage regulator is operating as designed. In other words, it is working in lieu with the stator to charge the battery and at the same time not allow the voltage within the electrical system to exceed 14 volts. So with that said, when we start the engine, I'm going to place the red positive lead of the voltmeter on the red positive cable terminal, followed by the black negative, and I will reference the volt output on the voltmeter. And again, it should be above 12.5 volts as the engine is running and charging the battery, however, never above 14 volts. DLRs, that is a good operating and replaced voltage regulator. Down below in the comments and description will be a link on purchasing this exact Craftsman voltmeter. This is a must-have and definite asset to your collection of tools. DLRs, that is it. The project is complete. We hope this helps. Do us a favor, below the video you will see that thumbs up icon. Click on that, like the video, subscribe to the channel. Definitely ring your YouTube bell. That would be very helpful to us. We'd really appreciate it. Thanks again for watching. And again, down below in the comments and description will be several helpful video links on working on this tractor, as well as where to purchase replacement parts. Thanks again. Back to the rear of the tractor, one last view of the newly installed voltage regulator, and me, including my dad, we both looked at it and thought, man, that really sticks out. And I think we're gonna do it. Gravely red touch-up paint. Down below in the comments and description will be a link on where to purchase this.